Okay, I'll call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission, Wednesday, September 28th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair DeBolt,
Here.
Vice Chair Lowe, absent. Commissioner Andrade, absent. Commissioner Quilty,
Here.
Commissioner Gross,
Here.
Commissioner Sofocanic,
Here.
and Commissioner Zelmer.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay, at this time, I'll open the floor for oral communications. If there's anybody in the audience wishing to address the Planning Commission and speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission, you can come forward here, state your name, and remarks are limited to not more than 5 minutes. If it's an item on the agenda, you might want to wait because we'll open it up at that time as well. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the oral communications. I'll move to item 5, the consent calendar. Someone would like to make a motion on the consent calendar or pull an item for discussion?
I'll make a motion. I
To
thought we
approve.
just did it at our special meeting, though.
Well, it gives us an extra week.
3 days, yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Moving on to item 5B, approval of the minutes for our special meeting of July 12 and regular meeting of July 27. Do we need to do those separately, or can we do it under one?
My understanding was we took a vote on the entirety of the consent calendar, which is,
Oh, I'm sorry, it is on the consent calendar. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay, moving on to item number 6. This is a public hearing. This is 6A. This is a variance for a driveway at 4321 Howard Avenue. Can we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioner DeBolt, Chair DeBolt, and members of the Planning Commission. Before I kick it over to Tom to go over the report, like you stated, it is a consideration of a variance at the address of 4321 Howard Avenue. I'm going to kick it over to Tom to take us through the details.
Great, fine.
Chair DeBolt and members of the Planning Commission, Variance 2201 is a request to allow public street side driveway access to remain when a new residential addition project is constructed in a zone where alley access is required. And this is at 4321 Howard Avenue in the multiple family residential R3 zoning district. The applicant is here with us tonight, Michelle Shagana. Yeah, exactly. And she has applied for hasn't applied for a building permit yet because she wants to have this item settled before she goes on to that far. Okay, so Municipal Code Section 1748.010 says variance procedure is established to allow minor relaxation of standards by the commission, which, with the strict application of this zoning code, would otherwise prevent a property from being used in the same manner as other similar property because of special circumstances applicable to the property, including location, shape, size, surroundings, topography, or other conditions where the intent of these regulations would not be compromised by such a minor relaxation. And variance cannot be requested for setbacks, heights, lot coverage, floor area ratio, parking space requirements, but this is not a parking space, this is a driveway. And no variance to land use regulations or density can be granted. That said, a variance cannot be granted that would have the effect of granting a special privilege to this property over that other property owners don't have. The part of the code that has to do with this situation is vehicular access, 1716.120.b. And it's in the multiple family residential zones of that section of the code. It says where a parcel, building site, or parcel, building site, or parcel abuts upon an alley, the primary vehicular ingress and egress to and from the garages, accessory structures, carports, or open parking spaces, housing, or intended to house or park motor vehicles shall be accessed, I can't read tonight, from the alley. The responsible review authority shall have the ability to allow an alternative ingress and egress arrangement based on site-specific circumstances. Now, I looked through the old code and stuff and found out this has been a code since the beginning of the city. And apparently they wanted to get rid of driveway access in Apartment Row, this area, and put it from the alley. And so looking through everything, I couldn't find minutes or anything to explain it. I have my gut feelings of what it's about, what the reason is, but I talked to the city engineer, and he said that it's probably it was probably intended to keep people from backing into a busy roadway. It tends to be quieter in the alley. Backing into the busier streets causes slowdowns and more wrecks and things like that because you can't see around the cars that are parked on either side of you, and you can't see pedestrians on the sidewalk. It makes it more pedestrian friendly when there's not a driveway every few feet. So it is in the multifamily residential zone in Apartment Row where numerous parcels have already removed their street-facing driveway when new residential units were added. You'll notice along those streets there's a lot of houses, and then they build apartment buildings behind them, and they moved the parking for the entire parcel back to the alley. Few street-facing driveways are left in existence in this area. There are some. And staff suggests that commissioners open the public hearing for comments from the public, and a denial resolution has been attached to this report due to the responses and the findings that we placed in there that you can see. And this can also be a moment where you can say, maybe we don't like this law anymore, if you want to. So keep that in mind as well. So that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions of staff at the moment with respect to the staff report?
I know that this isn't just in the Apartment Row area, this is specific to LaSalle, and it
Here
hits a
too.
whole lot for Old Town West as well.
Correct.
And in East. So it's not just specific, and I know that we did this to increase parking on the streets that had alley access. And the safety for the kids in that, so.
Okay. Okay, at this time, I will open the hearing for public comment. So if anybody would like to come up and address the commission, just state your name for the record and speak. Okay.
My only problem with this
Code.
code
Yeah.
is that I'm trying to build more units to add more property value, add more taxes for the city, and I'm limited on parking. You're requiring 13 spaces and you're taking 2 from me. So I can't build on my property. So how is that fair to me that I lose 2 parking spaces and I can't even build on my property? The new law is 13 spaces. I can only get 10, 11 if I try. By taking my 2 front driveway spots, that's 13. Now I'm within my rights, but you're taking them from me. What did I do? I'm $1 million cash out of my pocket and you're taking my driveway. I'm just confused.
So your code that you went to.
Just
Under the microphone.
one at a time.
Has to be recorded, yeah. Yeah.
You can speak after him and then come up.
It's just that's my biggest thing. So what am I to do as a homeowner slash builder slash trying to improve my property? What am I to do?
Okay.
Sell the property and move? And then somebody else's problem? I mean, I'm kind of stuck here. I don't know what to do. Any help would be
Well,
I got
greatly
a question.
well, just a second.
We can't.
Just a second.
It's-
We can't really engage in any back and forth, but let me just give you a succinct answer the way I see it, right? All we have before us tonight is a request for a variance. We don't have plans for a project, we don't have architectural drawings, we don't
Architect
have,
was supposed to be-
this type of thing. So what we're looking at today specifically is a variance, so just that. So just keeping that in mind so we can keep focused on the issue here. A variance is,
But that issue is a bigger, broader spectrum. It's not just the driveway.
So my question wasn't for him, and I want a question from Tom
Oh.
on what, in granting a variance, usually it's, a project that's done that is absent current code, not compliant with current code. I'm guessing that driveway has been there for a very long time.
80 years.
Yeah.
There are many, as an attorney, I know there's very many grandfathering provisions for things just like this. If he didn't build anything on the project, would we be having this conversation? The one next door to him,
what,
the one next door to him.
let me interrupt you just for a second. Why don't let's finish the oral communications, and then this type of questions we can get into in our discussion end.
Okay.
And we'll get all the information from the applicant and anybody else who wishes to speak, and then I'll close it off to the applicant, and then we can bring it back here, and then we can
All right, good.
we can discuss that, and then start with the questions that you have of staff and that like that. I think that would be a little more efficient.
Okay.
So
So
you're done. Okay,
I'm done.
come on in. That's okay. Come on in and just state your name.
So, Michelle
Okay,
Shigina,
okay.
the property owner.
Right.
So now, in this actual zoning, it's an R3 zoning. It's not a larger zoning, and it's not a merged parcel. So in your rebuttal against saying that this is reason for, because it's safe for the kids, that's not true. From my Lexington to this, and that back alley, I've got kids playing in that alley. If you try to exit that alley onto Lexington, it is far more dangerous than exiting my driveway onto Howard. There is a blocked wall here and a huge apartment building that doesn't allow for view of pedestrians walking on that sidewalk, bicyclists on that sidewalk, or even exiting that thing onto Lexington without crawling out to make sure there's not somebody flying by driving to the Army base on Lexington. So I can see where that would be in some of the things, and then to say that some of the driveways were eliminated, they were in some cases. I talked to Eddie, I've seen some of his buildings, some of those parcels were merged together. That's not what I'm doing. This unit is separate from the other two units. They're not attached. It's a separate individual home that I want to be able to walk in and out of my front door from. I don't want to have to pull back to an alley and have to walk through my back door every day.
Okay.
So-
All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'll close the oral communications portion of this and bring it back to the commission, and go ahead.
Yeah, I just,
Mr. Zone.
I own a property on Farquhar that has a similar issue, but our driveway was gone. But I know that 2 down, there's a driveway, so a lot of multifamily use properties have been built while maintaining that same front driveway. I've seen it many times. So I'm wondering, for this project, what prompted the variance? Was it a building permit, or was it, I mean, how did we get here? I'm just curious about procedurally, how did we get to this point where we're asking for something that's been there for 80 years?
She asked me if she could build a certain type of project, and I said you'd have to bring your driveway off of the alley.
Okay.
And she wanted to apply for a variance for that.
So if this variance isn't granted,
Right.
does that then mean that even if she doesn't build additional units, that she has to remove this?
No.
It's only if she's building these new
Correct.
lots. See, this is why I want to have this discussion, because now I got questions for them about their project.
I can open it back up for questions. But that raises a good question. Let's just talk about that just for a second. Okay, if I'm understanding from reading the staff report, I mean, typically we would have a project come before us, either with maybe not full-on drawings, but maybe a site plan, or just with a, here's what we want to do. Is it going to work? And the answer is going to be, well, if you're going to need a variance. You would have to be able to get a variance. Otherwise, it's required that all the access be off the alley. Okay, is the way I'm understanding this. So if we're going to do this absent any type of project before us, I guess this is a question for, maybe for the attorney. Can we do that, just sites, just in general? I mean, does a building permit, okay, just a building permit doesn't trigger it. It has to be, if I'm understanding correctly, our code, and it hasn't been cited yet, but I seem to remember this, that if you're going to be increasing the square footage of a property structure by more than 10% of what's on there right now, which sounds like it is projected, then they're required to comply with all of the codes, okay, to bring everything up to code. In the, when there's a increase in the structure size. So is that the is that that's probably the trigger, okay?
Yeah, so I'll admit that in some ways this is a little bit of a cart before the horse type situation. We would typically expect to see this type of deliberation or request when you have a site development permit before you, something that would give you perhaps a more concrete idea of what the development expectations were for the property. But it's my understanding through the Community Development Department that the applicant wanted to get a determination on whether or not this access point would be required to help inform them on what they wanted to do with their property. So that's why the variance is brought before you sort of in a vacuum, so to speak.
All right.
And then as to your other points, and also, the points that were brought up earlier, the home or the unit that's on this parcel right now has a front access driveway point. That became a legal non-conforming use when this code now said that within these multifamily zones, any property that has garages or structures intended for parking must take access from the alleyway. So as long as they're not doing anything to intensify the use as it exists, as a legal non-conforming use as it existed before this code started to require the driveway access, that can remain. But once they intensify the development on that property, it sort of resets the clock and says, okay, well now you need to come current with the zoning code as it stands today. And as this section is written today, it says that if you have a parcel that abuts an alleyway in one of these R3 multifamily zones, that the access to any structures intended for parking vehicles must come from the alleyway.
All right.
And it's that standard that we're looking to see if a variance could be granted.
Right.
But when was that code implemented?
1969 was the first time I saw it.
Okay.
Question? So the way you just said that, that's what they mean by grandfathering. They had it prior to the code, this was in existence, but they were grandfathered in with not doing anything or having to change because it was already there. But now to change it, it goes out of the grandfather being
It
brought
needs to be
in that
brought
way,
up to-
yes.
Up to
Yeah.
current.
I just want to make sure we
That's
all
that's the
understand it
clarity I
that way.
wanted. is-
Yeah.
Could I interject also,
Okay.
Chair?
Go ahead.
Chair DeBolt? If they submitted plans with the front driveway to the building department that have to pay building fees and all that stuff. I would say it couldn't happen that way. It has to come from the alley.
Right.
They would have to take it back to their architect and pay for another set of plans.
Right.
And they would, we would be back in this situation after they spent thousands of dollars, so I was saving them.
And I'm okay with that. I just want to get all the ground rules laid out here so there's an understanding
Just there's
amongst
a-
us.
Discrepancy on what he was talking about.
Okay.
No.
with the
Hang on one
permit.
second. Let me just finish, then I'll open it back up. Okay, so that we have an understanding of where the code, what the code was, what the code currently is, and what triggers the compliance with the current code, okay? And then the exception to that, if granted, would be a variance. But there are criteria that have to be met for the granting of a variance. Okay, so I'll stop right there, and then I'll open it back up to the floor, and then.
Just what he was talking about, getting a permit and having that stuff either granted or not granted. Well, once they did the permit to remodel the house, that was instant. So what you said was wrong. How it's written is wrong. It's not written that way. It's written the minute you pull a permit, that's what they want you to do. They want you to take that driveway out.
Okay, I'll go ahead and, I'll hope.
They made me turn.
You'll get an answer to that in the discussion, because
Okay.
I'll just expand on what I said just a minute
Okay.
ago.
All right, then.
And it's not a permit in and of itself for remodel. Well, go ahead and have a seat, and I'll go ahead and we'll bring it back here for a discussion. And let me reiterate what I just said, okay? It's not just a permit that will trigger this. It's a permit that also entails the addition of square footage that exceeds, if I remember correctly in the code, 10% of the existing structure, of the square footage of the existing structure. So if you were going to remodel, okay, call it a remodel, you can call it new construction, call it whatever you want. If you're going to add additional square footage to the property, okay, that exceeds 10% of the existing structure, that triggers the compliance with all the land use requirements that we have here. Okay, so that's what triggers it. Then and that would require the alley access for parking. Now the exception, you're looking for an exception to that, and that exception is the variance, if it can be granted. Okay? So that's where we're at. So that's what this discussion is going to be. It's not going to be about a project, because the project we haven't seen, and all I can tell you, there are a lot of other projects that have been going on, you know, that fit and they comply with the code. So now what we're here to talk about is, does this parcel qualify, meet the requirements for the granting of the variance? Okay? Now, I'll just continue for a second, and then I'll we'll get. It is my understanding for a variance, Tom has kind of, Mr. Oliver's kind of gone through it, I've been on the commission for a while, and even prior to that, that in order to qualify for a variance, there has to be something about the physicality of the parcel that is different from all the other parcels that are similar, such that your parcel is denied the benefit of development that the other parcels have. In other words, there's got to be something about you. Either it's size, size in the sense of, size comes into it, the shape, the topography, if you're on a hill and everybody else is flat, if you've got an odd angle in the back, if you've got something about the property that makes your property different than the properties up and down the street. If you're a square lot on a square track in a square block, then kind of be hard to find out what's unique about your property, okay, as opposed to anybody else's property, okay, that denies you the right to develop within the confines of the code. So that's my understanding of it. I'll open it up to the commissioners if anybody's got questions, comments, or anything beyond that.
I'll just go as far as saying that we've had this variance issue come before this commission numerous times, and I have the same understanding as Commissioner, as Chair DeBolt. The property has to be unique in fashion, again, by size, shape, topography. If it's similar than all the other parcels around it, and it doesn't present a circumstance that makes it different, then you cannot, by law, by strict reading of the statute, grant the variance. That's my understanding.
And with respect to how do you develop that type of thing, that's something that you have to get with an architect or somebody who can do the design and make it fit. There was enough, that's about all you can do, because we don't have a project here for that. But with respect for the variance, unless we can make those findings, and I don't see how we can. That's my take at the moment. I don't know if anybody's got any other comments or?
I mean, I'm reading the code right now, and it says a minor relaxation of certain standards, so I don't think it's as strict as you guys are putting it out to be. But I don't know. I personally think having the idea of having the plans, knowing what the project is going to entail, would weigh heavily on my decision of a variance or not. Yeah, I think it's just too early, to be honest.
Can I respond to the Commissioner's last comment? Again, I think the decision whether to grant a variance doesn't apply to the project. It applies to the uniqueness of the land. So again, you said, you need to see what kind of project's going to be there. That's not the criterion that we use with regard to deciding whether a variance is grantable. It's again, it goes to the land, not the project. That's my
I respectfully
understanding.
disagree, only because the project is going to have impact on the land and its uniqueness to the area, including where the buildings are located, where the parking's located, what the easement or egress for the other buildings or building are. So I disagree with that, only because the uniqueness of the land can conform to what the project is, instead of the other way around. So.
Okay.
It improves the property.
No.
Okay, just,
The issue that I see, and I'm going to go along with our chair here, is that we're talking about a variance, not a project. We've got the cart before the horse here, which is frustrating, because you want to see people develop, but we've got a cart that came in saying, okay, we got this problem here, and it makes it a very challenging decision, especially because we have a project that was done in Old Town East, in which in order to meet it, and they were on a corner lot, they had to put their driveway on a corner lot, which had street access. They had to actually put it to the alley at that point. So we are using this code for everybody. It's not just for
But
the
the new
apartment.
laws have changed
Can't
now.
speak right
Sorry,
now, sorry.
you'll have to,
No.
you'll
have
wait,
to
you're out, just wait until we'll open it back up. You'll get to speak again, but we'll finish up here and then.
So I feel frustrated because it feels like something came before something else, and it makes it a challenge to really say, well, you want a variance for what? Your house right now, as it sits, has a driveway, you have a garage. That's all I see. The variance is not about the future, it's about now. And I totally understand that they want to develop it, but we're talking a variance. I wanted to see it develop, but I don't know how to answer this particular question that we have. I agree with the chair.
Right, so that goes back to my original question, is if this variance isn't granted, does it change anything? The answer was no. So the variance is too early.
Well, I would I would
It'll
just say that
change with how they develop it.
But that's about the project,
the
not the variance.
variance, and I guess we can defer to the attorney at some point, but the code, I think, is clear, and I know my understanding of the variance is clear. It all has to do with the uniqueness of the property. Is there something different? It has nothing to do with the project. The extent that it has to do something with the project is if the physicality of the lot denies them the ability to develop their property, have a project, then a variance would be in order. But there's nothing about, the way I see it, this is a square lot, rectangular lot, in a rectangular block, in a rectangular tract, in a square city, okay? I mean, so there's nothing unique about it. It's flat, there's nothing in topography, there's nothing about the lot that denies them the ability to do, I'm gonna say, a project. It may not be the project that they have in mind today, but if they want to develop a multi-unit project on that property, it can be done and allow for alley access. It may not be the project that
That
they
can't be
want,
done.
but it can be done.
Cannot.
Okay.
I mean, we had
And I'll give you another example. I remember, again, this goes back years, a house in the Highlands at the end of one of the streets, I don't remember which one, it just had a weird shape. And they wanted to develop it and wanted to do an addition. And all they could do, because the garage had to be set back from the street a little bit, all they could put up was basically what's there. It was an odd-shaped house that was stuck in there as opposed to everything else around it. And they needed a variance to allow them to have the garage literally abut the sidewalk. And then they could get really a nice project, okay? And they could get something. And we granted the variance for that because of the uniqueness of the lot. It wasn't, cookie cutter lot. They got down to the end and it had a weird angled shape at one side. And we granted a variance for that so that they could and then that came in. But the lot itself was a weird shape that denied them the ability to architecturally conform to the neighborhood and build a project that would be acceptable. So that's how a variance was used there. But,
Well, we
My
also
variance
on
is a-
Farquhar a couple years ago, remember when they were redeveloping all of those, the one project, they ended up having to cut 1 or 2 units out because they couldn't support the.
Back then, it was only 9 parking spaces. Now it's 13.
But her point is that they had to cut back the project size to conform to the parking spaces.
Okay, I'm gonna-
which is
So I can only
something
put
we-
2
okay. There's gonna be no back and forth.
Okay.
Okay? If you want, I'll open it up in a minute and then you can,
Yeah,
we can't be
I got my point across.
bickering back and forth, so.
I still think this is just premature because, like I said, if it's Mr. Oliver's doing a favor to them by saying, hey, come here to look for the variance so that you know what you can do with your project, essentially, instead of having to go back to your architect and spend thousands of dollars. My point is, again, this variance, granted or not, isn't going to change the driveway being there. It's still going to be there. It's too early.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's not going, it doesn't immediately trigger any type of code enforcement because they are a legal non-conforming use right now.
Right, so why?
It only gets triggered, the requirement only gets triggered if they want to do something that requires, if they want to leave the driveway there, which is
Exactly.
what they want to do,
So how are we even speaking about a variance on a project that currently doesn't exist?
well, we can do a couple.
That's what I mean.
Well,
I know, but
Does
we,
it-
but we
Well, okay,
know
well, we
they
can
want
do-
to add on.
Well, we
We
can
know
do-
they're
we
going
can
to
do a
develop it.
So what they need to do, if they, in my opinion, if they want to spend the money to put up the plans to then come and ask for a variance
Right,
with the plans, they have every right to do that.
Right.
Whether it costs them more money or not. right now, I don't see, I'm afraid that if we, you know, I just think I think it's moot. I honestly, I think it's pointless to grant it or deny it at this point. I think it just should be taken off calendar. And if they want to come back when it's actually an issue, where code enforcement is going to happen, or they are no longer grandfathered in, and they have to go conforming to the new code, that's when they should bring back the option for the variance. I think it's just way too premature.
Smart way to do it.
I-
It's it could be $30,000 for architectural plans to get denied, and then it's not like moving the driveway. I mean, they'll have to change the whole plan.
Well, they understand the point now.
Yeah.
that If they bring it to us now, it probably wouldn't happen, but if they came with plans on a reason why and had arguments of why the uniqueness of the property can establish from a variance, I understand your point, it's a rectangle block, right? But I'm just saying, if it does conform to it, I think you can come back to that argument later. But right now, I mean, honestly, I'm just going to abstain from voting because I don't think it's appropriate time, so.
All right.
If I could,
Yeah,
please, I think it might be helpful to help frame the discussion just by reviewing some of the required findings.
Right.
So in order to grant a variance, you have to make a few affirmative findings with respect to the site. One of those, and I'll just read it into the record because I think it'll be helpful, is that there are special circumstances applying to the site, such as size, shape, topography, so that strict application of this title denies the property owner privileges enjoyed by other property owners in the vicinity and under identical zoning. So that's one finding. Another affirmative finding that would have to be made would be that the variance will not constitute a grant of special privilege and entitlement inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity with the same zoning. So that's just to help frame the discussion. If there was a desire to move forward with the variance, we would have to articulate facts that support those findings. Alternatively, if we think there aren't special circumstances when you take a look at the site, that lends itself to not advancing the variance.
Okay, so.
I just want to chime in on this a little bit because, I don't speak, I never spoke to the applicant, right? But as being the director, Tom would come and we would analyze this, okay? So there's a lot of information going out there, parking spaces and variances and setbacks and all that. They're all separate issues right now. We got to concentrate on the variance,
right.
all right? And the variance say, and we stated here that if you were to add square footage in the back, okay, then the rule here, again, as a staff person, I don't make rules. We don't make rules. We follow what the rules say,
Right.
right? And the rules say, the codes say that if you add square footage, then you have to basically delete the front axis and put a access way in the back.
Right.
Okay, whether you put 1 unit, 4 units, 20 units, okay? That's it is, right? And so they're requesting a variance because of their desire to meet a 13-space parking. That's what I'm hearing right here. It's a whole separate issue, okay? Totally separate issue, okay? The issue is whether, again, you put 1 unit or 20 units in there, according to the code that we have to follow as a staff person, right? That we have to delete the front entryway, and then they have to have the entryway to the alleyway.
Well, thank you for the comment. I'll bring it back and just say that the code requires, when you do the additional square footage, that you comply with all of the site development
Correct.
requirements that we have that is currently there. So it's not only the variance, okay? It's not only the access. It's going to be parking spaces. It's going to be setback
gonna be
requirements. It's
height.
going to be height. It's
Correct.
going to be all the other things that we see. But the only way you get around any of that is with the variance provided, and if, again, the criterion for the variance has to do with the uniqueness of the property, not the intended project, not even the project that's before you. You've got to get to the point where you're there. So That's about it. So I guess,
I'd like to add one thing, because Tom said in his presentation is, you know, it is a code, and there is a possibility of updating the code and revising the code. But again, that's at the discretion of the planning commission, or that's at the discretion of the city council.
well, I think it's beyond that. I think, isn't it in the, even go into the state code? Because I think that the state calls out the definition of a variance. We follow the state code, and that's in, I know, I've been down this path before. And
That's correct, a variance is defined by the state planning
It's
law. that
defined by
we're
the
bound
state.
I think the idea of a code amendment would be if at some point there were, and I'm not advocating this, it's just if there, at some point, obviously, parking standards are changed from time to time, driveway or access point requirements have been implemented and changed from time to time. It's just, I think really what's being said is that perhaps a variance may not be the tool that's needed to address the problems that are perhaps identified, and that usually goes back to actual zoning code amendments to make, you know, those surgical type changes.
Right. Okay, so with all of that, do we have a motion on this item? Are we ready to?
Can I speak for a minute?
Go ahead. I'll open it up to the public one more time.
So this is an R3 zoning. An R3 zoning in the city of Los Al, and Corona Del Mar obviously is completely different. R3 is your residence plus 3. With the parking regulations, like Lloyd was trying to say, you cannot get an R plus a 3 for the city of Los Al, which legally allows you to do that, but because of the restrictions in your parking regulations, it stops you. I have no intent of doing that. Tom has gone back and forth with the architect who, during the pandemic, has been sick and had difficulties. So the final plans have not been submitted to him. The plan is to only do 2 units, not to maximize this property with real estate. It's to do 2 separate units behind that have an area for the dogs and for the kids, so the kids aren't playing in the alleys, because what you're trying to do is eliminate parking from not only the homeowner, but the occupant, gain 1 parking on the street, which we all lose at that point. You know, that parking on that street, you close that curb, you have one parking space. I lose 2. That 1 parking space, you know, has cars that come there 4 or 5 times, and, you know, it sits there for 4 or 5 days from the Catella commercial buildings, and they don't move it because they're restricted on their parking and they have no place to park, so they park on our street. So how does that gain parking for my tenants or myself as a homeowner? It doesn't. And then we all lose, because now the kids still continue. If I maximize my thing and have to put all the parking on my backyard, they have no place to play but the alley. Their entrance and exit is the alley, riding their bikes up and down the street to gain and to exit the property, not exiting Howard. The ways these plans are formatted, they've got an entrance and an exit from Howard to walk back and forth to their property. They don't have to go through the alley. The alley's more dangerous than the street alone. So you guys keep going back to these plans and the way they're stipulated and stuff, but you know, that has to be taken into consideration too, because like you said, the more things that are getting closed up and the less parking that there is, there's more traffic going back and forth there that's blocked, and there's more kids playing in that alley, which is, it's really sad. So.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting, bring it back to the commission. Do we have a motion on this item?
As much as I feel, I feel very, like I said, conflicted. We're about a variance. We're not about a project tonight, and I have to go with the staff on the denial. So I make a motion for a denial of variance 22-01.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call on this, or? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Not opposed, I'm abstaining.
Abstain? Okay.
Chair, if I could, before we move on, since this has been a denial, I'd just like to point out for the record that this is a decision that's subject to appeal
Right.
within a 10-day period following this decision.
Okay, so our decisions are appealable to the city council. Okay, so that's, so you can, we're not the last stop. Okay, so that motion's passed. Okay, so we'll move on to item, where are we at? Item 6B.
All right,
Continued consideration of a secondhand store in the commercial zone on Los Alamitos Boulevard.
Correct. This is a consideration of a CUP to either deny or allow a secondhand store to be permitted at 10582 Los Alamitos Boulevard and General Commercial Zoning District. The applicant is William or Bill Phillips, and the business is Play Against Sports. And so a little history on that. Here is the Planning Commission first discussed the proposed project at the July 27th meeting. And then it was kind of returned back to the commission, the Planning Commission, on August 24th. And during the August 24th meeting, the commissions were informed that the applicant needed more time to make progress on clearing up some code enforcement issues. Some of the code enforcement issues, and I'm going to go off memory, and if I miss something, chime in, Tom, is there was a container in the back parking lot, outdoor sales, there were some bikes, and then some signage issues, correct?
Correct.
Did I miss anything?
That's it.
Okay. And so then the commission continued item to today, September 28th, directing the applicant to hopefully resolve their code enforcement issue and direct the staff to prepare a denial resolution for the possibility that the applicant did not take care of these issues. During the August to today's meeting, staff has met with Mr. Phillips to go over some of his issues. We had an on-site visit. We have communicated through him through emails. And as of today, again, I want Tom to chime in. He has taken care of his outdoor storage container. We went out there today before the meeting. It is gone, but he still is displaying outdoor merchandising for sale at his facility. And then part of that too was the plan was to move his outdoor sales and reconstruct an area in front of his business, right? And we were requesting some architectural drawings. We have not seen any of that as of today as well. So that is the update. And so because of that, staff recommends to the Planning Commission to either adopt the resolution to either deny, but we also have one again for approval. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Push it back to the chair and the commission for any questions or comments.
Okay, so any questions? No. Comments? So as it stands right now, we still have open violations.
Right.
That's correct.
All right. With any time frame for resolution on those?
He's getting tickets now, so he needs to clear it up. Yeah.
I believe the applicant is here and.
Yeah.
I'm going to, go ahead.
So I drove by the property today again, and I drive by every few days. Somewhere in the last couple of days, the container has been moved.
Right.
But he hasn't paid the fine or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
No, he will continue to get tickets while he has outdoor sales.
Okay, that's what I was confused on.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll open it to the public, the applicant, since you're here. Go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Bill Phillips. I'm the owner of Play Against Sports. This is the third time now this has come up. My contention right now is that we are not a secondhand dealer by your definition. Pure and simple. According to Los Alamitos Municipal Code 17.74.190, a secondhand store is a business involved in this retail sale of used goods and merchandise such as a thrift store or consignment store, whereby the sale of such used goods and merchandise comprise 25% or more of total monthly sales volume. Okay, Tom, Ron and I have talked about this. Don and I have talked about it multiple times. I brought this up 2 months ago, and I'm going to repeat it again. The sale of used goods and merchandise at our business comprise less than 25% monthly sales volume and have for many years. I was told I needed a CUP. Nobody ever asked me about the business or whatever, and I blindly went through the motions, expenses, only to learn that I really don't need one when I looked up the definition of it. We can debate it all day, but it is in black and white on your code. It's pretty hard to interpret it any other way. So whether I need a CUP or not is what I'm debating. Now, I did move the container. That's been handled. There's 4 bikes out front. We're going to throw those in the trash can tomorrow morning after this meeting. They're gone. We're not going to sell bikes anymore, okay? That's over. What I'm frustrated about is that this last meeting that I watched on video, all this debate going back and forth and the accusation of me wasting the city's time and resources. The city's wasting my time and resource right now. I'm sick of this. I'll move those bikes, I'll get them out of there. But you know, when I walk around the city and see everybody else doing the same thing, you go to the thrift store down behind Nick's, they got stuff all over the grass, okay? You go to the other one, they've got stuff all over the place. There's people out there with stuff out there. My employees park their bikes out front on that sign, okay? So which bikes are for sale, which ones aren't? There's a few things out there, okay? I put together, I got your pictures of the container being gone. I knew someone was coming by anyways, but there's photographs. We need to see that. I've got plans for where we hope to put something that we can display bikes, because that does bring in a lot of business. And by the way, I did a quick, ran a few reports. You might be interested in this, you may not, I don't know. But since 2015, we've generated over $365,000 in sales tax. Sales tax, that's not sales, that's tax that we have sold, that's tax we've paid back to the state from sales made in Long Beach, made in Seal Beach, made in Whittier, made in all cities outside of Los Alamitos, that we're contributing money back into the city. And the fact that this comes up over and over and over again is just, it's tiresome. Someone on this committee's got a problem with me. I don't know who it is, I don't care who it is, but honestly, it feels like there's more to this than there needs to be. The container's gone. That creates a challenge for us. Whatever. We tossed half the stuff out. We found places to put everything else. My garage is where the rest of it is. It's not easy doing business here. It really is not. I know that there's a coffee shop that wants to open up in the same unit I'm in. And I'm told they can't because they don't have adequate parking. Again, parking. Parking. It's always parking. There's never enough parking, but we always find a way to make do with it. We had a batting cage getting ready to open up down on Kyle Street. Had to jump through all kinds of hoops. Finally, we said, you know what? Been through this, don't want to go through it again. We packed it up, moved it to Garden Grove. It's there now. We're overbooked. We're getting ready to open a second one in 2023. That's gone. I don't want to open up another business in town here. The stuff that I've gone through the last 6-7 years, the nitpicking, all the other things, I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. So, yeah, there's still some bikes there. We are in violation. Give me the ticket, I'll pay the fine. I don't care. I was told I had to have a CUP. Turns out I don't. So, let's take it from there and find out if I really do need to have a CUP. And I'm sure, the attorney here can interpret that a lot of different ways. Let's find out whether I need it or not. I'm a little bit, at this point, kind of in a mood of screw it. I'll shut the thing down and call it a day. I'd rather not do that. We're growing, and we're growing fast, and we're growing outside of new used, sales. That's not what we do. We do it, but it's not more than 25% of our numbers. And I can give you proof of it. I can show you reports that come from our corporate headquarters that break it down. They're on PDFs. They're not something that can be manipulated. I've got all that information. But God darn it, man, I'm getting tired of this. We're going back and forth in this debate of whether he gets a CUP or not. Let's talk about whether I need one. I don't think I do. According to your rules, I don't. So, I'm happy to talk, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm really frustrated by all this.
Any questions of the applicant? None? Okay. All right. I have a question, staff. I'm going to go, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, I'll close the public portion if you want to have a seat, and we'll go from there. Question of staff, okay, regarding just a touch base. absent a requirement of less than 25% or more than 25%, whichever it is, would that eliminate the need for a CUP?
So Mr. Phillip is correct. According to our code, if he does have less than 25%,
Right.
that is correct.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. To date, have you received anything from his CPA, accounting, anything that would, where it would be an audited financial signed by a CPA that would declare and state that the revenues here are either less or more? I'm not remembering what it was.
Yeah.
Have you received anything from the applicant to verify what we're hearing today?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but we have not.
Yeah, no.
All right, fine. Okay, so.
He has volunteered to.
Well,
if you want.
you know,
Yeah.
I have to think that if that is the defining criteria for this 25% number is a magic number, then I would think that would be the first thing that I would produce to substantiate. I can allege all I want. I can say anything I want. But if I got my certified accountant who's willing to put his license on the line and sign a statement that says I've audited the financials and looked at the receipts, and his business does not meet this 25% threshold, that might have some bearing on a decision. So having said that, I'm willing to go one more time, provided all the code enforcement issues are taken care of. I'm prepared to extend 30 more days until our next meeting, to give him time to produce it, if he wants to produce it. If he thinks he can produce it, and that would eliminate the need for a CUP, I guess.
Michael,
But
if,
absent that,
yeah.
absent that, and if we still have current code violations, I'm not prepared to do anything on this.
Michael, if he does produce the financials and we determine he doesn't need one, would it even need to come back to us? Or would it just be that we realize he doesn't need it and he goes along his way?
Yeah, I would think that if staff were satisfied that he did not meet those criteria, that they would just be pulled off calendar and he would continue as a regular retail operation, provided that's permitted.
And he
But-
would need to stop advertising as a secondhand dealer. Yeah.
So that's code, you
Yeah.
guys deal with that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the code stuff would continue on a separate track
Right.
because we still do have the outdoor display that needs to be resolved. So, yeah.
Okay, so,
Can I chime in here is, I understand, Chair DeBolt, what you're saying, but we have discussed this with the applicant, the owner, and one of the things here is, we told him that we are not equipped, we are not accountants. We don't do
Right.
all that stuff, right? And so then secondly here is, let's say he provides data for, like, I just go fiscal year, right? Fiscal year 21, 22, or whatever year, right? A 12-month period, and it shows that he is less than the 25%. But then, do we have to do an annual audit every year to make sure that he stays under the 25? So what if one year he comes back and he says, oh, darn it, I missed it. It's 26%. So now I need a CUP. So what do we do right then and there? Right? So do we as a staff have to audit him every year to make sure that he stays under that 25%?
I think this is getting a little bit out of control, because every time we've had this meeting, it hasn't been about whether he's going to get a CUP or not. If he didn't have code violations today, we'd grant him a CUP. No question about it. Okay, this is about code violations, and while we're trying to keep them separate, he's not going to be able to change the name from Play It Again Sports. Traditionally, Play It Again Sports is a used, you show all the records you want. Even the national records, doesn't matter. It's that you can't not advertise for consignment or used goods. It's in the name. Unless you change the name, which it's a license, it's fine. Just clear up can't talk to him. Clear up the code violations, you get a CUP. I think everybody is on board with that. I
I think we've said that. I think basically we've sent that message for the last 3 months. You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
manage properties. It's kind of like me trying to, you know, I get an applicant who who rent an apartment, you know, but he's under a 3-day notice to quit because he hasn't paid his rent.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's two separate transactions. I'm not prepared to approve an item with outstanding code violations, because in our CUP, we're going to have a list of requirements.
Right. But that's my
You know,
point.
in our resolution, in the permit that he's going to be given, there's going to be a whole host of requirements.
Yeah.
That it's over and above that's in here.
But that's my point. My point isn't that he shouldn't, even if his individual sales aren't over 25%, it's in the name. I can't open up a Buffalo Exchange, which is a used clothing store that people, you know, buy and sell, but only sell brand new clothes and then call it's in the name.
Right.
In my opinion, a CUP is required based on the name of the company. And a CUP is going to be independent from the code violations. If we're denying him a CUP based on code violations or giving him one more opportunity, then that's what we need to,
Well, the CUP.
we need to do.
The CUP is not on the name, the CUP is on the use. And the
Exactly.
use in this case has a 25% threshold. If that threshold.
No, I disagree, because Tom said it also has to be non-advertising from,
No, he's talking about, the advertising he's talking about is the advertising that's not permitted, you know, outdoor go ahead, you
Oh,
explain it. I'm not.
if he doesn't get a CUP, then he has to get a business license from the city. I can't give him a business license if the first thing I look at this on his website is that he is a secondhand dealer. That's the very first thing you see when you go to his
which
website.
is incorporated in the name.
Right.
You can't,
Fine.
you
All right.
have to have a CUP.
All right.
So I want to go back to something else at the moment, and I'm not really trying to discuss at the moment with the applicant. He was talking with you about the handicap. Has any further discussion about that handicap area?
That- Yeah, we have talked about it, and he says he's working on it.
And working on it. So that there would help. Now, I went over and took a look, and the ramp, I had it backwards for a minute, but the area he's talking about is not a problem to get rid of that handicap. It's not one that's really used, because from a handicap standpoint, it's awkward. And I did look at it. Even though it meets code, codes don't always work for the handicap. Sorry. So I'm not, that isn't an issue with me. I think the business is a good fit in the area, that I do see. I think that the location for him, for the city, for everything is a good location. It's sad that we're having this argument about, or discussion constantly about violations and not dealing with them. Yeah, that needs to be dealt with. That's the same thing as getting parking ticket after parking ticket and not dealing with it. That's not the right way to handle it. The basic is, it's a good fit, good location. We need to figure out how he's gonna handle violations. He did move the container, which was great. He did take the time. I know that was not a little feat, that there was some challenges with that. But I personally, moving that handicap, I'm gonna call it a ramp because I don't know what else to call it. And using that for outdoor sales, I don't have an issue with that right in there. That would fit just fine, and you're not taking parking. You're not, in fact, for handicap, the one that they access is the one by the doors that everybody is actually using, if I have it right.
Right.
Yeah. And so that, to me, is not a real issue. My big thing is finding a way to deal with the fines or whatever it is and getting the rest of it going in a positive direction so that everything works in the right way that it should.
I mean, I personally want to make a motion, if I can, to grant the CUP, because I personally think if he wants to take fines on his business every day, that's up to him.
Let's see if
So-
anybody else wants to talk first, though, before we move.
Well, we can-
Okay?
You can make a motion.
We can make a motion. That's
We
okay.
have
Still
to
have
do a
discussion. No, we don't. I don't think.
I thought we had to have a first and a second before then you.
I'm firsting
He's
making the motion.
make the motion.
Okay, I'll
Okay, we have a
give a
motion. We
second.
have
You
a,
can go ahead and have discussion.
yeah, we can have discussion, yeah,
Okay.
before we vote. Okay, so we have a motion. Somebody want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
For
it's been-
approval.
Okay, so it's Okay, so now we can have, okay, so is there further discussion on this item? Okay.
Well,
We're going, we'll hear from everybody and we'll vote.
The applicant's come in and says that he doesn't need a CUP, so why should we be granting something he alleges he doesn't need? Let's just deny it, and if he wants to carry on business as a non-secondhand store, then he can do that.
I think it sets a precedent that he's obviously frustrated. This is his third time in. He came in last time very respectfully, trying to grant a CUP. We talked about the other issues with the code violations and things. I think he is substantially conformed to our requests, especially as it relates to getting rid of the large container, adding the parking back. What's preventing him from getting a CUP right now is a bike rack. Personally, if he is now being fined, because last time he wasn't being fined, if he is now getting a weekly fine, daily fine, whatever it might be, I think the conditional use permit is a separate issue. I think he's conformed to the application, and I think we should grant it.
But if he doesn't need the CUP, the problem with the CUP is it stays with the building.
I did, but I said earlier, I believe he needs a CUP. And this is why, because he said if he doesn't have a CUP, he has to apply for a business license. Tom already said if he applies for a business license, he can't advertise or have the name be a secondhand thing. Play it against
Don't you
sports
sell
is a
business
secondhand
license?
thing.
Yeah, you
With
need
the
a
CUP,
business.
he has
But-
to go either way.
Right.
Tom basically just said the business license is going to get denied because he has secondhand use built into the name of the store.
But, again,
So it's going to just go back into a circle. We'll be back here.
well, as Commissioner Coyle, it's not about him, it's about the land. If we grant CUP, it runs with the land. Whether he continues doing business or he closes business down in a month, that CUP remains with that land. And he's saying he doesn't need one based on his sales. So now we're talking about his sale, we're talking about him, i.e. his sales, as opposed to what we should be talking about is the business, as the property, as the use.
He wouldn't have applied for a CUP months ago if he didn't need one.
Well, he says he doesn't.
He is frustrated in it now. There's an application on the table. Whether he believes the city has told him he needs to apply for one, he's applied for one. Whether he thinks he actually needs to have one or not, I think is irrelevant.
I'm going to ask real quick, on the CUP, when we've granted them before, and we know it goes with the property, what are the limitations and restrictions on it if somebody else were to come in? I know it's kind of a big answer.
If they're a secondhand dealer, the exact same stuff. Yeah, they still have to follow all of the same codes.
And so if a secondhand dealer could come in, it would still follow our regulations on secondhand stores and what type we allow.
Correct.
So it wouldn't
Right.
be a pawn shop or things like that, so
Right.
that's okay. I mean, these are things we've had issues with before, and that would be definitely a high-risk area for one.
When did they go into this location?
I don't know.
Were they in this location before, or they've been here a long time?
They
and
were
we're
on
just-
Catella before.
Okay.
And then they were on Losal before
They were
in
the-
Rossmore.
I think the location's great with the high schools, just like when we did the pool. The pool really didn't meet, but yet it was a perfect location for it. That's what I do like. I do like the location. There's things about it I like. I think it's sad that it's a small building and it makes it tight for them. I get that. It disappoints me when they get code violations, and I get that's frustrating, but deal with them or do the best you can. It took a long time to deal with some of it, but I think there's resolutions around it with the handicap situation that we have. I think this is all possible. I think it's possible that you can have the outdoor cells in the front, which might be more ideal where it's easier to see. And you're trying to sell, so you want your item where it's visible.
All right. Okay, I'll finish, and then we'll give you the last word when we get up here. My take on this is, before he opened his business, number one, he should have had a business license. Number two, he should have had a CUP. Okay, that's out of the box. Now, so we're already, he's already behind, behind on the CUP. And then it comes to us, it's great, it's going to be rectified, we find out there are various code violations. Okay. In an approval of this, if we look at item 13, applicant to maintain the site for according to applicable section 17.2 for the Los Al municipal codes. 14, all signs shall comply with the provisions of the Los Alamitos Code and/or plan sign program that pertains to subject property. Number 15, applicant shall comply with applicable city, county, and/or state regulations. 16, there should be no outdoor sales or merchandise. 17, no outdoor storage of items, storage containers on the property. Code enforcement, tenant shall contact the city if they intend to erect signs, banners, flags, other items in conjunction with the operation of the business to obtain a permit for those uses. 20, no outdoor sales or displays permitted. I would just simply say he's already in violation of most of these, although some have been rectified, not all of them. Okay. What's our alternative in the end? You grant the approval, I guess maybe there's never an issue, but if not, we end up back here with a revocation of a CUP. I mean, I'm not inclined to go along with,
What I'd like to say.
especially hearing, just a second, especially in hearing, just the public comments, okay, doesn't do anything to soften my opinion of what we're doing here. I am not inclined to grant the CUP, just because it's like going from one violation to another, and now we're going to approve it, and we approve it with violations of it already going on. That's my.
I have a question for the city attorney. If you had a CUP and you started doing outdoor sales, what's the remedy?
Well, you'd still be subject to administrative citations and code enforcement, and potentially criminal proceedings as well for violations of the municipal code. But as the chair had suggested, the remedy for the planning commission would require that we have a revocation hearing. So it would have to come back to the planning commission. You'd have to hear a presentation of the facts and an explanation of what the conditions are in the property, and then make a determination as to whether or not the license or the CUP holder could continue in operation.
Does the CUP still go with the land if he doesn't comply or continue in operation?
It would not run with the land if it's revoked, but up until that point, it still stays with the property.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask one quick question? So this says that he can't have outdoor sales. So we're talking about him redoing that ramp. I mean, if this says you can't do outdoor sales,
The outdoor sales requires a CUP, a separate CUP.
so there would be another CUP?
Yeah.
There would be another application, another CUP that identifies where those sales are conducted and places any limitations on it. The outdoor sales within our code, so it has to be identified within a specific site. So part of that process would be getting a very clear understanding of where those activities can be carried out. And if that were approved, then you also likely come in and amend these conditions from this CUP.
Do we have a definition section somewhere in here that defines what outdoor sales is?
Let's see.
The code speaks broadly to temporary and permanent outdoor display and sales that may be associated with the operation of retail establishments or of commercial centers. So it's pretty general explanation. And then there's different standards through the code for temporary displays, which can be granted on an interim basis versus permanent displays.
Yep.
Commissioner Solficani?
Yeah, I have a question regarding if it granted a subsequent CUP application for outdoor sales, can that be merged with this one as additional conditions of this CUP?
It's already in there, isn't it?
Yeah, if we had been in a position where the applicant was moving forward saying, I'd like a CUP for secondhand sales, and I would also like to conduct permanent outdoor sales, it could have been packaged as one approval and relevant conditions, but the way it's proceeded to this point, that the CUP for the secondhand use was moving forward with the demand that these code violations be, remedied or cured first.
Okay.
So
So is it too late to amend, to add those conditions? Is that,
it wouldn't be feasible at this point because of the code requirements that you in essence need a site plan showing the location of the
Right.
sales area and so forth, so.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion up here? Okay, I'll open it back up to the public.
Thank you. The property owner, prior to me moving in there, had a conditional use permit for that property. The conditional use permit stays with the property. I'm a little bit confused how that works. I do have a business license. The business license has my home address on it. I don't know why it has my home address on it, but I've had it, and I've continued to have a business license in town here for 10-plus years, ever since we moved from the Rossmore section. We do have a CUP. We had one that's 4141. We got that back in 2013, I believe. Back then, we were only selling retail over the counter. Today, we are selling lots of equipment, lots of cloth, lots of other product to leagues, to schools, to community, Long Beach City, and so on. And that is continuing to grow faster than we can do it right now. We're turning business away in some cases, but that is continuing to grow, and it probably will continue to grow over the next so many years. But the question about the CUP being associated with the actual physical property, the previous owner, Scuba Store, had a CUP. When I moved, my business license didn't have the business address on it. Didn't seem like I needed to make a big deal about moving from 3 blocks away into a place that was already a retail business. The landlord didn't have any issues with it, and I didn't think the fact that I already had a CUP and that I already had a business license, it didn't make a huge difference. But anyways, if I need to get the additional CUP for outdoor sales, I'll do it, or at least I'll apply for it. If I can't, we won't. The 4 bikes that are out there, we'll just get rid of them. We'd like to put them out front. We'd like to put something out front. We'd like to nice it up. We'd like to replaster the wall, get rid of those ice plants like Tom and I discussed. I've got plans for that right here. I've got 2 options for the front of the store, how we could do it. I've spoken to Tom and Ron about what we need, what we don't need. I've got option A and option B here. They can be accepted or denied, or we don't have to do anything at all. I believe that is part of the city's property. That is the sidewalk for the city, not something that is on the land. It's not part of the landlord's property. So it would be me spending money to make the sidewalk more accessible to students going by out of my own pocket. I've got that for Tom. And again, I'm a little bit confused on this whole, if the CUP stays with the property, then why are we having this discussion? I mean, I got to get home. My kids are...
All right, so
Could I ask either the attorney, Ron, or Tom, define the CUP to kind of explain how a CUP runs with the property, how it was different for the property before, how the CUPs, how that works?
I'm going to close the public hearing. If you want to have a seat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll finish off here.
So I know it gets confusing.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm not familiar with the prior CUP that was issued to the scuba. I'm hearing now for the first time that there was a scuba diving store of some sort there previously. So to understand what that contemplated in terms of the operation and use, we'd have to look at that specific CUP to see if there were any application to what's being applied for now. I mean, these CUPs will frequently identify the type of use that's going in. They'll talk about, on occasion, number of employees, limitations on hours, things along those lines that don't, although they run with the land, they don't universally translate to a tenant who comes in subsequently. So that would really need sort of a side-by-side comparison.
So that's kind of what I was trying to do, is show that just because there was one doesn't make it fit for you.
But the CUP is also for the use, the type of use for that particular zone. It's not just a CUP that just, it's based upon the use of the property.
Just a real layman's term, like we did a CUP for a selling of alcohol, correct? So let's say that alcohol business either closed or moved out. If a new tenant wanted to come in and sell alcohol, they can use that CUP, but if they don't want to and they wanted to change their business, then they have to get a new CUP because their business is different than the alcohol sale.
Okay, so,
I just wanted to help clarify for him.
okay, any further discussion?
Like I said, I think that the fit, even though I know that there's all these issues that we're all concerned about, location, the fit really has some positive things for the city. It's like other things that we've had to kind of bend a little bit. I personally hope that he will take out the ramp and fix it up and do some things to it so that he can have the front outdoor sales come back. And as much as I understand, that's another one of these CUPs to do the outdoor sales. There's some things I think that the city can help work with him to get this into a better, positive way of coming through and not 3 to 6 months of trying to get a CUP through. As we've said, I support the motion to go ahead and move forward. Hopefully he clears up everything, that's up to the city. But as far as the store itself, I think it's positive for the city.
I'd just like to say, I agree. I think I would love to see him continue to do business here. I think it's positive for the city, positive for the school. It's a good location. But that's what a CUP is. You have a use and you condition it. And some of the conditions here, as Chair DeBolt pointed out, 13, 14, 15, 16, are continually being violated. So if we do grant it, then he's going to be subject to continued violations, which again results in tickets, as they've been called here, or notices to comply probably, and or revocation. So if we do grant it, it's going to be incumbent upon the applicant to comply with those conditions or suffer, we'll be back here again. I'd love to see him succeed, but that's going to be up to him.
Well, he's done
And
most of it, yeah.
And I would echo that comment, but I would also say that something my father told me, if he has it and I want it, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. I think we've been pretty clear all the way through that this CUP, we need code violations corrected. I would have expected that would have been handled after the first meeting, so this wouldn't have lingered on for 3 meetings, that all of these violations would have been taken care of immediately, so they come back in clean and without a second chance, okay, without having to have the extensions. I still don't see the, I like the business and all that, but I just don't see the,
Well, he got rid of the container.
Sure.
For me, it comes down to pros and cons. You don't grant the permit today, and he leaves the city, and we lose a big part of something that, as a coach on 4 different teams, I utilize this store on a regular basis. It's the closest sporting goods store, reasonably priced. They got good quality things, and he's right. A lot of things are new. It's kind of nice. Okay. We are talking about a bike rack. The last thing, he's getting citations. If we grant this CUP, we got another contractual agreement with him that he is now breaking that condition. If that continues, there is now more remedy to revoke that CUP at some later time. Wilt's bringing in revenue for the city from him paying the fines. With all due respect, I think it's better for him to be here because we are earmarking this on a single ordinance that he can't do now, or single code violation, on something that, if that code violation, which he said he'd cure tonight by throwing those bikes away, isn't enforced, we aren't even discussing this right now. It's granted. So for me, because granting the CUP doesn't have effect on the possibility of revoking it should he continue to violate the code violations, I have no problem granting it today. And I think that, because there's remedy for it, I think we could always table it and see, give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see if he does it. And if not, criminal liability, civil liability, possibility that we revoke the COP and he has to leave anyway. But I think his business brings in way more good than one code violation.
Is it what? Question for, is it one code violation?
Is what?
Is it one code violation right now?
Right now, yes. Yeah.
It's bikes.
Sharon?
It's the bikes.
There's another option, I think, on the table that Chair DeBolt expressed earlier in this discussion, is that this is before the applicant said that he did not need a CUP. Now we're having heated discussion about whether to grant him something he says he doesn't need. But Chair DeBolt stated that we give him one more chance to remedy all these violations and come back to us. And that might be a compromise that satisfies everybody.
Satisfy me.
Okay, if I could, I'd just like to remind us that we do have a motion and a second that still has not been
Make a
resolved. So I don't know if
substitute
we're making a substitute motion or.
Well,
I'd like to rule on that motion
Or-
to see if we have a majority, and then we can make a second motion on
And-
continuing this.
just to echo Commissioner Zelmer, is that if he violates the CUP that we have, that's going to affect his business. Whether we make him come back in 1 month or not isn't going to make a difference. The city can deal with the code violations as far as the financial end. My feeling is time to move forward. If he violates it, he'll be back here.
No, he won't be back here.
Well,
With the
he'll be down,
revocation.
Yeah.
Well, wait, let's just talk about a revocation. How's the revocation start? What's the process on a revocation?
Generally, that would come back before the planning commission as a
And who
hearing.
would bring it? Who would bring it?
Staff would agendize it and bring it back to you if
All right.
there are code violations.
All right.
So in that respect, we do have some ability to bring it back if it continues. So it's a CUP that has this ability to say, you have to follow this. And then if he wants to try to do things in here for his business, like we discussed the handicap, that's still going to take another CUP with this, so he's going to be back with that. In the meantime, he'll have a CUP doing business, and he can work with staff to see how that business cannot be expanded or done better or whatnot. But it is a great location right by the school.
I'll open it to,
Yeah, I have a procedural question for council. Commissioner Zeller suggested we proceed with the motion in the second and see how it goes, and if it doesn't go, I don't know what you want, then we redo it. I don't think we can do that. Can
how
we
about
do
a
that?
substitute motion?
A
You can make a
substitute.
sub- You can make a substitute.
Substitute
to continue, or?
No, you make a
But
substitute.
the substitute would have to be agreed upon by the maker of the motion, correct?
I'll do the substitute. I mean, I'm okay with that. I think,
So we're saying we're gonna have a vote on this motion in a second, and if it turns out that it's denied, then we're gonna do a substitute, and then give them another 30 days. I'm just trying to clarify procedurally what we're talking about doing here.
So the first motion was approval of the CUP, approving the resolution,
Right.
and that received a second. So we could take a vote on that. If the maker of the motion wants to accept a friendly amendment or
A
allow a
substitute.
substitute,
Did
Yeah.
I finish one statement?
Well, let him
Wait,
finish.
let him finish.
You can make, you can make a substitute motion, and then, and I think you rule on the substitute motion first, and then you would go to the other
Okay.
one. So the substitute motion the way I heard.
Well, I'm just wondering,
Maybe wait 30, continue at 30 days to clean it all up.
well, that was your suggestion. I think it would be,
you're gonna make
I think
that
it would
motion.
benefit everybody. I think what we're trying to do here is let this gentleman proceed with his business, but we want him to do it within the scope of the code. And he's basically telling us he can do that, and we're hoping he can, but his past conduct is giving us reason to possibly question that.
Okay, so
So
you make-
My
Yeah,
question is,
yeah.
how soon after could you make can staff make a revocation suggestion to the person? Can you make a revocation in 30 days if he's not in compliance in 30 days?
Yes.
There you go.
Can I add one more thing to my comments, though?
Go ahead, make it count.
One of the nice things about the location is that when we were looking at how we put all the sports stuff in areas, what's sitting right there is that you come down Brigman Way right around the corner, and that's where all the sports stuff that we wanted there as it is. So we've got Play It Again Sports in an area that we really would like to have inducive to the city as well. So that location is ideal for multiple reasons. The substitute, I think, is the way of doing it. If potentially, is it possible then on a substitute that if he came back, he could have that ramp identified as a possibility in here? Can that happen?
And do it all as
No.
one?
Yeah. So everything comes back as one.
Yeah, if staff was presented with the information they would need otherwise to bring forward the outdoor sales item, we could notice that and bring it back as a topic to be discussed in an action item at the next meeting as well.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. If you want to make a substitute motion,
I'm not sure procedurally that I agree with how this is going to go,
Let's ask Michael. Hey,
so
Michael,
I'm not going to do.
can we pass things out that the applicant would like to pass out? These are plans.
yeah.
Is that relevant?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, okay, we have a motion and a second, okay, to approve the CUP. Question for the staff or for the city attorney. If the motion fails, okay, then is that a denial of the CUP?
A motion, yes. If there's a motion to approve and that fails for lack of support, that would effectively be a denial of the CUP.
Yeah, question.
But are you proposing a substitute motion then that could
Yeah.
potentially?
Continue it.
Right.
So, question for council. So the maker of the motion, at this point in time, could
No, you can make a substitute
make a
motion.
substitute motion, or anybody, but the maker of the motion could make a substitute motion to override the original motion to approve and make the motion to come back in 30 days?
They could allow a friendly amendment, yeah, if there's a suggestion that they change the original motion. But I think we'd still need a second on that, however.
All right, who made the motion?
I'm ready to get this done.
Quagmire.
Who made the motion?
Gary?
I did.
No, okay.
So he can stay with the motion to approve, or he can make a substitute motion to,
Well, I think you can make a substitute motion, I think.
Doesn't it have to
I'm not
be-
up on my rules of order, but I believe a substitution,
But believe me, I will be just looking at this stuff tonight.
yeah. I believe a substitute motion can be made. I believe it can be seconded, okay, but then you vote on the
In
substitute.
order, right.
You vote on the substitute first, and if that passes, then it's a fail on the, then the other motion is just
Goes
dead.
away.
It just is moot.
All due respect.
Okay, and then, yeah, that's,
do you want to speak? 'Cause-
Yeah, I just, I get giving him the 30 days, but at this point, to what end? We give him the 30 days, he complies, we come back here, we approve it, and then the next day he has the bikes back out there and he's in violation and he's paying fines again. It's so cyclical
might
that
as well just,
might as well, I think the CUP should be approved and there is remedy for violation of the CUP. I just think, I'm going to deny the substituted motion.
yeah, okay.
And I think right now it's make or break. He either gets it or not.
All right, and.
Sorry,
and
to
for
put
cla-
you-
And for clarity, on, if any of the conditions of of the CUP are violated, okay, then staff can place onto the agenda the following meeting, a recommendation for revocation of the CUP.
Yes, we would bring it back.
All right, all right. One last comment from Commissioner Silvercan?
Yeah. Prior to my vote, I'd like to make the record clear that I cannot vote for something, although I want it to succeed, I want it to be part of the city. I can't vote for something that's already flawed, it's already tainted, that, you know, it's starting off with one foot in you know, I can't do that, even though I'd like it to go forward. That was my impetus for suggesting a substitute motion to give him more time, but if we're not doing that, then I just want to make that record before I vote.
Okay, so is this a roll call? Roll call vote? Okay, so all in favor of approving the CUP?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
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 I'm abstaining.
Don't know that you can.
No.
The rules and order are going to be so much fun to read. All right, so motion doesn't pass, which leaves
Doesn't
us
go
at a denial.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
It doesn't
Makes
go
no
nowhere.
sense.
It doesn't go nowhere.
correct.
Yeah.
There's no action. So if the motion was to approve the CUP, because we're locked up on the votes, that means there's no approval of the CUP.
Okay.
So potentially, there's a case for a substitute motion at this point. There were two.
I'll make a substitute
Alternatives.
motion to do the alternative, which is to bring it back in 1 month with,
Me?
I'm trying to remember all of this, with the codes cleaned up. And I think it's just the cleaning up of the code here that we have so that it meets the CUP.
If I may say,
Uh-huh.
that he comes back in compliance with the terms that
Terms.
are already
In the code.
in the proposed
Okay.
approval
Yeah.
of the CUP. Forget
Okay.
the code violations that are out there, he's
Okay.
got to be in
Meets the
compliance.
compliance.
With the
I'll second
conditions that
that.
are in the CUP.
Okay.
I need to ask for a clarification, Chair. If we come back with the CUP next month, would you like for the outdoor sales to be in that CUP?
I think
What-
that's the applicant's decision, if they want to bring it
Well-
forward or not.
I would like to see, if nothing else,
Yeah.
a proposal on that for how he's going to remedy outdoor
Yeah.
sales. Does that make good
Well,
sense?
our code requires him to have a CUP for the outdoor sales. Whether he wants to come in and bring it in, and I don't know if there's an additional fee to that or whatever,
There usually is.
that he's going to bring it in and make it all part of one, so he's done with this, that's up to him. Leave that up to the applicant, okay?
Yeah.
We're dealing with the CUP that's before us, okay? And if the motion that I'm hearing is that we're going to give him 30 days, it's basically the same thing. He's got to be in compliance with the code compliance, and it'll go with the what we're seeing in our CUP. That
Yeah.
that his code violations are taken care of, basically.
Okay.
You have a first and a second.
Okay, so you made the motion,
And I second it.
second it. Okay, so I have a motion and a second to hold this for 30 days, bring it back in 30 days, and hopefully he's got everything taken care of. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Passes.
As a formality, I thought we said we couldn't do that just now. I thought you said
He's gonna be up all
if I denied the substituted motion, we had to rule.
It's a new motion.
Yep,
The first
okay.
motion failed.
It didn't-
It's not a substitute.
Yeah, there is no action on the first motion, so we still have an opportunity.
Oh,
to-
because she abstained.
Well,
Gotcha. So that's why.
right.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Okay.
Yeah. 5-minute break.
mine.
Yeah.
Like half an hour ago.
You want me to?
Discussion on it.
You gonna raise your Robert's rules tonight?
My heart.
Come back into session. Okay, next item on the agenda, item 7. This is a discussion of a community development block grant regarding future fund use. Staff report.
Welcome back. The Community Development Block Grant, which we call CDBG funds, the City of Los Alamitos have applied and received that for the past several years. As you can see in the staff report, some of the projects that we've done the last year in 2018-19, we did the alley and sidewalk repair in the Apartment Row neighborhood. 1920, we repaired Noel Street from Catella Avenue to Farquhar. 2021, we repaired Howard Avenue, a street project from Reagan to Maple. And then scheduled in 21-22 is a repair of Howard Avenue from Noel to Lexington, and the repair of Bloomfield from Catella Avenue to Farquhar. This current year for 22-23, the CDBG funds will be utilized to renovate the Stearns Park as part of the Stearns Park project. We went to council to issue out the RFP at the last council meeting, and so it was approved by council, so that is out right now. And hopefully the bids will be submitted in a few weeks. So this is for the next year, which is 23-24, and where we had a public discussion or public noticing for future or that year's project. We put an advertisement in the paper. We put it on our website, and as of before this meeting, we did not receive any type of comment or anything. Correct, Tom? Correct. Right, and so right here we do. Staff does have a recommendation, and the recommendation is to do another playground project. This is at Labradette Park. Again, it's a removal and replacement of play equipment. Again, Labradette Park is at 4401 Howard Street, and we are anticipating that we are going to receive about $350,000 from CDBG funding that will assist with the total cost of doing that playground project.
Great. Okay. Any comments?
I got a question, just looking at, who prioritizes the parks as being the next project, or whose idea is that?
I would say it's a staff idea, and the reason why we did that, and I'll let Tom chime in, is, City Council, this past current year, and we're finishing up, we did a very large street improvement project in the city, right? And then we are scheduled to do a phase 2 of that street improvement project. So there's already funds to do a lot of the streets in the city. We also use other funds that the city receive, like Measure M money and gas tax money, to again facilitate street improvement project. So we over here in Development Services, we are the keeper of the maintenance of the parks, and we have timelines of when this park was upgraded. And they say that usually you want to upgrade your park facility every 20 years. We have several parks in the city that are 25 plus years old. And so that's why we kind of said that because we're doing so much in the street, we can maybe use this CDBG funding for a park project.
And the only reason I ask is looking at the priority needs level on the previous page, the parks and recreational facilities are actually a medium priority, wherein homeless facilities, neighborhood facilities or libraries are higher. I'm just curious as to.
Yes, and so you are correct, but like for instance, the Stearns Park project, we are repairing some ADA facility because none of our parks are really ADA compliant, but we are also turning that park into a fully accessible playground, all right? Again, most parks only have a portion that's fully accessible. Stearns Park will be fully accessible. So Labradette Park, again, they have some ADA issues there as well because, again, the park was made 20 plus years ago, and so we're going to go in there, fix the ADA issues, and then again put a portion of that park to ADA compliance. So along with the playgrounds and then adding on the ADA stuff, that kind of vaults us a little bit higher in the priority scale.
When you say ADA, are you talking about some of the playground equipment will be more geared toward children with ADA?
At the Stearns Park, correct. So at the Stearns Park, if you are, again, ADA, you have access to, again, the design says 100% of the play equipment. When we go to Labradette Park, because we're not going to designate that as a fully accessible one, you only have a percentage of it where, yes, an ADA child can utilize that play equipment.
When was this priority level thing updated? Before printing? Because it looks like the street improvements, which were done the last several years, it's still a high priority. Water and sewer improvements, those seem like, you know, if those aren't taken care of, we're looking at some bigger issues.
Those priorities are from the state. I mean, from,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, from HUD,
that's
I'm
from the
sorry.
state.
Not from the
HUD.
state, from HUD.
Not our local?
Right. No.
Okay, that's where I was
Correct.
confused. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is going more towards our needs then?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
perfect. That clears
No,
up my concern.
All right. Okay, so moving on, let's see, do we have any items from the Community Development Department?
Tom, I think Tom has one or
yes.
two. Then I have a few.
Yeah, we have, I don't know if you noticed last month or a couple of months ago now, there was a Wendy's commercial filmed at Wendy's.
Yeah.
They enjoyed being here so much, they're doing a second set of commercials here.
Yep.
So that's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Where at?
I saw one of the
At
commercials.
the Wendy's in our
Oh, okay.
town,
Both
yeah.
of them, both
Yeah.
commercials.
Yeah.
Yes,
Another
exactly.
Wendy's
They're
commercial.
filmed
And
there.
I saw,
Yeah,
A
it's-
long time.
yeah, but I saw the
I mean,
commercial, and I saw the Farquhar sign.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, you couldn't read it, but I mean, you could see that
Yeah.
it was shot through the,
Nice,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so this one has to do with their Italian mozzarella or something like that, new dish, so, anyway, so that's nice. We don't usually get, I mean, other cities get a lot more filming going on, but we got it, so. And then Loanne Tran, I don't know if you remember her, she applied to have a duplex built. She let it expire.
Right.
And then you approved it again.
Yeah.
It's almost done. So
Nice.
this has been 7 years. So she's really been under the gun for a long time. So she's called for pre-final inspections, and we're working on that. So
Good.
it's almost done. It looks nice. It does. So
What
yeah.
street was that on again?
Cherry.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's right next to the Grateful Hearts buildings.
No.
What's going on with
The
Precious Life.
I get that wrong every time.
That's okay.
I call them precious moments all the time. So.
Okay, okay, we have, is that it? Oh, Ron.
Yeah, a few. So I'm going to start off real quick that I think the Planning Commission is aware that we had a council member, Ron Bates, pass away recently. And so on September 26th, City Council voted to appoint a member to fill the vacant City Council seat in District 2. And so if you go online, if anyone you know, or you yourself, if you do reside in District 2, is interested, you are encouraged to apply. You must be a registered voter in District 2 and go onto the website. They'll tell you what you need to do. You submit a cover letter, application, resume. The deadline for submittal is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 18th. And then if you are passing through the screening process, they'll ask you to come in for an interview scheduled for a special council meeting on October 24th.
What's District 2? Oh, jinx.
Again,
I know it's not
if you
mine,
go
but-
to those cities' website, they'll highlight District 2, but just in generality, it's like the College North area.
Kind of where you
No,
live.
it's,
Yeah, Greenbrook.
Greenbrook,
Greenbrook.
okay.
And then coming on down.
Correct. But
A
again,
bit of the apartment area.
yeah, again, if you go on to the
Can we
website, we'll,
nominate somebody?
Yeah.
another thing here is I invite all the commissioners to attend our event, Good Morning Los Alamitos. It's held on Wednesday, October 19th at 8:30 a.m. at the Community Center. What's unique about this particular one is the mayor will be presenting a State of the City video, and also we'll have every city department there talking about past projects or programs that we've done in the last about 6-8 months, and then about future projects coming up. Good Morning Los Alamitos is a way to connect residents, the business community, and the city's partners together, along with city staff. So again, we encourage all residents, business members, the Planning Commission, Wednesday, October 19th at 8:30 a.m. at the community center. The next thing I want to talk about is the Recreation Community Services Department Trunk or Treat. It's held at Little Cottonwood Park, on Saturday, October 22nd, from 5 to 7:30 p.m. Again, visit the city's website for more information. It is a free event. Again, Trunk or Treat, Little Cottonwood Park, Saturday, October 22nd. And the last thing I want to mention is Lost Out Bucks. You should have gotten yours in the mail. It's yellow. Your bucks are inside. You can go to the store right now to utilize your Lost Out Bucks. And then we also, for this round, we have certain days where it's double your bucks. So if you go to a business that's highlighted that is that week for the double your bucks, you could go to that business, use the bucks that you received in your mail, and then you get an additional 50 bucks. Okay? So again, everything's on the city website. Visit the city website for more information.
What if you didn't get them?
Contact City Hall, and then you can come by, show proof of residence, like a driver's license, and you'll receive your bucks.
Did it go to all the apartments and everything?
It should, yes.
All right.
Every
This time I didn't get 'em.
I didn't get them last time.
residential address in the city should have received the Lost
Every
Out
what?
A
Bucks.
week ago,
Every
Are you-
residential address in the city should receive Lost Bucks. This,
last week sometime.
Art, did you get yours?
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
He's my neighbor, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I got yours too. No, I'm sorry. I picked them all up.
So you were the guy by the mailman that was going, give, I'll deliver them.
I know the mailman. I'm going to have a talk with him.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, great. All right. Commissioner reports? None?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll let,
First off, I really think that I'd like to thank again the city for the Serve Los Al project that just went on. That was fun and outstanding. The only thing I wish is that I got done with my project that I was helping after 3:30, and I was going to use my bike stuff. So maybe they could extend the little bike packet they gave us.
the bikes and bikes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fun, but then I realized it was expired time.
That's
So
a
it was kind of a
Recreation and
bummer.
Community Service Department
Yeah.
event, but I'll convey that to them.
Yeah, and then just to let you know that the street fair was a lot of fun. Being there 2 days for Precious Life was great. But the funny part was, do you know that people came up to me and recognized me as the witch from the trunk or treat the year before? That scared me. I didn't know I looked that bad. But I really do appreciate, it was a lot of fun. The city is doing an outstanding job of engaging the community. The other thing I do want to say is that I'd like to close tonight in honor of Ron Bates when we do. It wasn't just that he was a council member. This was a family, a man that dedicated so much of his self and his time to people in this community. And you didn't have to be right here. He would reach out to anybody who said, do you have a thought or suggestion? It didn't matter who you were. He'd be right there. And he always had, he never told you, you have to do it my way. He would give you recommendations and let you work it out. I think that speaks volume for us as a community to have somebody like him here, and we're really going to miss him. So I'd like to close tonight in his honor.
all right, very good. Okay, so with that, we will close in honor of,
No, I
Okay.
can't.
so with that, we will close in memory and in honor of former council member Ron Bates. And we'll see you next month.